So hi, everybody. My name's Chris Merrick, co-founder and CTO at Omni Analytics, close partner of DBT's. Fun fact about me is I was actually the first committer to DBT Core way back in 2015. And my lasting contribution to DBT was that I gave it its name.
I can't one-up that. That's incredible. Oh, my goodness. My name is Priya. I run the centralized data function over at a SaaS startup called Cribl. Startup, it's about 1,000 people now, but it used to be a startup not too long ago. And I'm excited to be sitting with you talking about how we enable self-serve for our large employee base using core tools in our tech stack, DBT, of course, and Omni. And to get started, I want to give you guys some context on what self-serve looks like at Cribl. So Cribl has about 1,000 employees. At the beginning of this year, we had about 77% of all our employees in our BI tool every month. That's more than 700 users. Now, you might be thinking, wow, the data team must be huge. No, the data team is not huge. The data team at the start of this year was actually only 4 people managing about 700 different stakeholders. And of course, when you think about, well, how do I address an audience of 700 people with data to make sure that people feel empowered, that people feel productive and efficient because they have the data to be wildly successful? Well, 4 people, 700 users, that doesn't scale very well. And that means that your BI tool is critical for your success. You want to have a BI tool that makes it so easy for people to pull their own data, the right data, right? How many times have we had people pull the number of customers and get a wrong number than the one you actually have? So governed data. And you can only imagine, Cribl was about 800 people at the beginning of this year. Now we're about 1,000 people. So the problem only gets larger and larger over time. And of course, in this era of AI where you're told, how many of you have been told do more with less? Use AI? Yeah, I see hands. Yes. Do more with less. You really need to have the right tool stack. To give you some more background on how the analytics team is set up at Cribl, we have a centralized data team that rolls into me. We have 4 functions there. Data analytics, which is about 4 people, 2 data engineers managing about 35 different integrations, and our entire ecosystem, including our published API. We have data science and data governance, which we just started investing in, and we'll be investing in heavily more next year. One thing I love about the AI phenomenon that's kind of been taking the valley is that your AI is only as good as your data is governed. And so you actually have to invest in data governance sooner than you might normally expect to. And on top of this, we have a hub and spoke model. So we have BI analysts embedded in other functions all around Cribl. The people function, the marketing function, the customer experience function, expecting about 3 more functions to add those next year. We love that people see the need for data. And as someone who works at a data company, it's the biggest compliment you can get in the world when people just are thirsty for data. But like I said, you have to be able to give it to them in a way that they can self-serve themselves and not be a bottleneck, right? If you have people knocking at your door, but you can't answer the door, therefore they can't do your job. So you're not really doing what's best for the company. And so we kicked off this journey. How many of you guys use Looker? How many of you guys use? Oh, a lot of you use Looker. I was a long-term Looker customer. I used Looker at my previous job before that. In fact, I bought from Diego over here 2 different times at 2 different companies. And when you use your BI tool and your BI tool is so central to self-serve, it's always critical that you make sure you have the right tool for your company. And so at the beginning of this year, ahead of our Looker renewal, we asked ourselves, well, AI taking the world by storm, what else is out there that could be competitive with what we're looking for? And something I'll add is we do regular surveys on Looker. We've been using Looker for 4 years at Cribl. Constantly great CSAT score, above 80, which is best in class, wonderful. No one was complaining, no one was mad about Looker. But it wasn't it wasn't about that as much as it was about what don't we have. We didn't have, and what else was out there that would give us an opportunity to invest more in our self-serve motion to make people get to the data they needed faster and more well-governed than they did today. And so when we set out on this journey, we spent 3 months researching, actually. We talked to many companies. We actually evaluated about 6 total companies. And we were using Looker as the baseline, because Looker, there's a reason why Looker is still around. It's a wonderful product. Like I said, a user of many years. And so we couldn't take our company backwards. We had to take our company forwards. So when we were looking at brand new products out there, we were saying, is it easier for the people at Cribl to build? Is it easier for them to get to the insights faster? Does this remove us from the process so that they can feel enabled and move quicker? And most importantly, Looker had reliably been the same product that we had bought 4 years previously, right? It hadn't changed much. So what else is out there that could potentially have product momentum, build things, and have a plan together to change how BI is done today that we can get conviction in, that we believe could help support these principles that we had outlined with our users? And I will say, it wasn't like Omni was the only choice out there. Sorry, Chris. Like, we POC'd, let's see, we demoed 3 tools. We POC'd 2 different tools. And like I said before, we just kept coming back to the baseline. How does it compare to Looker? How do the charts compare to Looker? What do we unlock that Looker doesn't unlock today? I'm not going to read the slide, but like 2 callouts I'll make is like, 1, I mentioned that we have a hub and spoke model. We do not let people outside of the centralized data team have access to our data warehouse. We do not let them have access to dbt. So what happens is what they see in our BI tool in the development layer, because they typically have developer access, is what they get. So you can imagine you have like Mr. and Miss BI analyst showing up at your door asking you, hey, what did you do with that Salesforce data? Why is it coming back like this? Well, in our dbt model, we did X, Y, and Z. What's really wonderful about Omni, they have a dbt integration. And so actually, in our developer layer, in the files directly, they can see all the logic we applied to that model right then and there on the same page. I'll also add that my analysts are very, very happy that they don't have to have VS Code up along with the BI tool up to cross-compare and see what came from where. And then another additional add here is the AI. So Omni has an AI, still called Blobby?
Still called Blobby.
Still called Blobby. It sounds like, you can picture it exactly as it sounds. It's a blob, a pink blob. And Blobby is only as smart as you make it. And one thing I appreciate is all the levers that Omni has given us in their UI to make the AI smarter. And I'll go into that a little bit because we actually ended up using the dbt metadata to enrich to pass it up to Omni in their native integration to make Blobby smarter and actually have like what I like to call like the Cribl lens of the business. So going back to our story of our migration effort, even though the analytics team was wildly impressed with our Omni demo, at the end of the day, it had to be a decision that was best for the company. We couldn't tell 800 of our users, hey, we're switching BI tools to make our life easier, and we know it will make your life easier. Does anybody else hate being told what to do? Exactly. We didn't want our users feeling like this, and so even though we were all unanimously, wow, this is an impressive tool, we see a lot of value here, do our users who aren't admins, who don't have access to dbt, who aren't as technical, do they see that same type of value? And does this unlock something that we were missing and we didn't know we didn't have? And so in our second phase of POC, where we kind of opened the floodgates, we invited about 19 users from 8 different departments, had them independently POC. We kind of put real data sets that they actively used in Looker today into Omni and said, go at it. And 1 week later, we sent them a survey, and we asked them for their opinions. It was a very robust survey. But one of the most important questions we asked is, we said, should we switch BI tools tomorrow? 75% of that group said yes, 100%. And so when we passed that stage and we got validation and even more conviction, we moved on to our final stage, which is the executive team. So our BI tool, as I mentioned, is a critical tool at Cribl. 800 people in it every single month. The executive team runs their board decks from our BI tool. They live and breathe in our BI tool. So it was important that we got executive sign-off on our BI tool. And I think what's really, really wonderful is that our champions from the cross-functional user group actually went to their executive team members and said, you have to say yes to this tool. Like, I will go demo to you the Excel functionality. Funny enough, my CFO heard there was Excel integration, and he immediately was like, yes. He didn't look at anything else. He said, yes, I want Excel. Do you get that often, Chris?
Yeah, that's a common response from the finance team.
What was really great, I think, is going into this process and having spent so much time in Omni, we were really upfront with our executive team. Like, look, we're not going into this with rose-colored lenses. Omni gave us and unlocks a lot of different things, but they also have some things they need to fix. We actually had a whole list. And I'm proud to say that within 2 months of us signing our contract, 99% of those things were fixed. Still waiting for the one.
We can talk after this.
And then most importantly, what will we have to live with? Like, this isn't even on the roadmap. We had this with Looker. We will have to live with the fact that they don't have total labels on multi-measure stack chart, but it's very, very specific, very, very specific. But we know what we're getting into, and now we need to make a decision. What we unlock going to be better than all the things we will have to live with? It ended up being worth it. So we signed our Omni contract. We were actually very inspired. They published a case study with BuzzFeed. That was actually super compelling. BuzzFeed, it made us feel better, actually, because BuzzFeed had been on Looker for about 10 years. And they migrated, I think, 200 dashboards. We, out of the 750 dashboards we had in Looker, migrated 96 of them. And we migrated them in 5 weeks with just 4 data team members. I will say, part of a big role in this is DBT, because a lot of our logic lives in DBT, thank goodness. Not the semantic layer of Looker, which I think complicates it a lot. Like, it's like the copy pasta, like, all over again. But we're very fortunate that we had DBT up and running. That's where we had most of our logic sit. And therefore, it was mostly pointing to the right place and just rebuilding. After we rebuilt, we invited 70 to 80 of our best friends within Cribl to come join us, validate our data, test out the tool, test out new features, because Omni ships features every two weeks?
Every week.
Every week. Testing out features as they go live, and also helping them bring over their personal dashboards that we did not migrate in our 96 master list of top dashboards within Cribl itself. What was really great is those 70 users became power users. We gave them builder training in Omni. And what this meant is when we finally made a company-wide announcement and opened it up, and our super users had been in our instance for 6 weeks at that point, we had 70 Omni champions who were spreading how much time they were saving with the Excel-like functionality, with the AI functionality, which was really wonderful. We opened up Omni to the entire company, so 750 more people at that time, August 1st, and migrated our reports and our alerts, and then deprecated Looker officially on September 1st. We actually just sent out a survey asking people, like, hey, what do you miss about Looker? The most common feedback we got was we don't miss Looker. And I think a big part of this is everyone was really nervous. When 100% of your revenue team and your marketing team and your product team and people team live in your BI tool constantly, they get really nervous with change. What was really great is because we had done the pre-work to migrate, invited super users in, people were surprised the moment we released Omni that all their dashboards and all their reports were exactly where they needed to be. And then everything else, the Blobby AI chat, was all an added plus. Chris, you want to talk about how the Omni DBT workflow works?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. One just quick call out before I do. I think one great takeaway from what Priya just described too for anyone here who works at like medium to large size businesses is I've never seen someone use surveys so effectively. So it certainly has inspired me to think about being data driven in my own work and how I introduce change and so forth. So I think that's been really cool to watch you operate. But yeah, so just real quick, Priya mentioned the integration with DBT is a big reason why she liked Omni. Just how does that work? So the three main things that we set out to solve with integrating Omni and DBT, one, Priya mentioned already, don't repeat yourself, no copy pasta, right? Like if you have a definition in your DBT model, if you have descriptions in your DBT model, if you have test values, if you have example queries, if you have any other metadata that would possibly make sense in a BI context, Omni's going to read that in. And it's also going to read in the actual definitions of the DBT model so that when someone's working with that model or that table, they know, oh yeah, this is the logic behind it, right? So don't repeat yourself. Second thing is enable better collaboration between the business logic that exists in the heads of a lot of those BI users and the data team who is owning a lot of the DBT modeling but may not have all that business logic, right? So in addition to reading that metadata out of Omni, and reading that metadata out of DBT, Omni can also push that metadata and push DBT models back into DBT. So you can have a BI team member, an analyst who typically doesn't live in the DBT world, create a new model, and either push that to DBT themselves if that's how the organization operates, or submit a pull request to have it be reviewed for integration into the DBT models. And so the third thing, and this is I would argue sort of the coolest part of our integration, it's to help people manage changes between DBT and Omni, and to stop what I have seen many times. People say, well, when I make DBT changes, I just sort of cross my fingers and hope that my dashboards have not broken, right? And we talked to so many people who said that was sort of the best they could do in terms of managing DBT model changes against BI changes, right? And so what you can do, and I'll actually walk through this workflow, if you don't mind sliding forward a little bit there, thank you. In Omni, you can make a change in DBT, you can push that change into your DBT repository. You can either sort of manually or maybe a CI/CD process can build that change and materialize it into a new environment in your warehouse. Maybe it's a schema or a database, however you structured it. And in Omni, you can actually do essentially a mirror of that. So you can create a branch in Omni that sort of doesn't impact production, and you can point that branch to that DBT environment. So now you can see, okay, what's broken? We have a content validator that's going to go through and look at every single one of your dashboards and say, oh, wait, there's a reference here that doesn't exist right now in this new DBT environment. And so you can go through, you can validate the logic, you can see what's broken and change it, and you can actually fix it inside that branch in Omni, and then you can merge them together in lockstep so that your production users, your end users, don't see any of this. So this is one of the cool things that I don't think anybody else can do, is actually give you this really nice integrated change management cycle. One last little plug as well. In addition to reading DBT model data, we are currently working on a DBT semantic layer integration so that we can read DBT semantic data into Omni. So you can sort of just query those same semantic structures from Omni as you would directly in the DBT semantic layer. And one of the cool things that we just released a few weeks ago is the ability to push exposures from Omni into DBT. So if you're really bought into sort of using exposures for your data catalog and lineage, you can sort of automatically have have Omni dashboards push into DBT exposures.
This is the type of innovation that locked us in and really convinced us that Omni was the right choice for us. We have a tech stack that maybe it might look familiar to all of you, or maybe some of the logos like Fivetran and Prefect look very familiar. But we ingest data, and it goes into our data warehouse, which we use Snowflake. And then we have DBT, which we love DBT because it just transforms, and it makes the data, it makes it so easy to apply the Cribl lens of the business on top of data. and make that the single source of truth. Like I mentioned before, only things that go through DBT are what gets pushed into Omni. So now that integration that Chris just walked you through actually gives us this ability to kind of fold back the blanket a little bit and give people a bit more exposure that we didn't normally give them before. And then, of course, the unexpected benefit. Chris said this quite casually, which is like the metadata sync with DBT. I'm curious, how many people in the audience, how many of you have descriptions for your columns in DBT and like across many of your models? I see you, Connor. Oh yeah, see, it's about 10% of the room. So I'm in the 0 bucket. Like, you know, when you're running fast and then you're a small team, that's just an excuse, I suppose. You don't really prioritize documentation. And so we had 100 models, some with hundreds of fields in it, and 0 descriptions and 0 documentation. So like I mentioned earlier, Blobby is only as smart as the governance and the description and the information and the effort you put behind it. And so while the analytics team was migrating dashboards into Omni, we took our 2 data engineers and asked them, hey, how hard would it be to use AI to auto-document every single field, every single model, and every single schema we have? And also, I don't really have a huge budget. Like, it can't cost me a lot of money. They used $20. That's for a full refresh, though. It doesn't actually cost $20. It costs me about 10 cents like, per a rerun, which is really great. Best investment, best $20 I've spent in my whole entire life. And so actually, our new process, and I'll dive into some like learning lessons about that, our new process today is that people make changes to models in DBT, and then it triggers a CI/CD pipeline that takes the model that was changed, any other models that reference that model, the schema as well, and the model, and will update every single description for every single column for the whole lineage, which is really, really amazing. And then we'll update the YAML files, automatically put it in the pull request, and when it gets merged, you simply go to Omni and literally click one button, refresh metadata. And it refreshes all the metadata, and we just made the AI in Omni that much smarter and up to date with documentation, like live. We make a lot of changes every week. Like my team averages about 16 pull requests a week. And so it's really great to have this reassurance that everything will always be in sync and updated. Some of the things like we do in our model layer that now Blobby knows because of this metadata sync is like Jira tickets. How many of you guys use Jira? Yes, yes, yes. So Jira has a close date on tickets. At Cribl, we don't have close date. We have first resolved date and second resolved date because tickets can get reopened and what happens in that space of time. And actually, because of the metadata sync with DBT, where we have inferred this and can explain this, now Blobby knows. When I say, hey, how many tickets did I close in the last 6 weeks? It knows to use resolve date as the source of truth because we've told it that that's the source of truth at Cribl. I'll also add like a few things like Omni does that helps us reinforce governance with AI because like the craziest thing that can happen is you ask, hey, how many customers do I have? I had 5 tomorrow, I had 12 in the future. Like you never know what the AI is going to return. And one thing I'm appreciative of is that Omni also gives us the ability to pre-train questions. So you can imagine your top 10 critical questions that you might get asked. You can pre-train the AI, so it will always return the right answer. Governance. When we think about using AI, right, so we're given the directive, and maybe all teams are being given the directive, you need to do more with less. AI gives us an ability to do that, but you have to be able to have governance on the AI, and you have to be able to have the feedback mechanisms to work with it. Like I said, like Omni gives us so many different fields that we can pass along different ways and different perspectives of the data. It's not just description. You can actually pass like AI context to topic levels to almost give it personas to apply automatically on top of the data. You can imagine like our financial metrics. We say, imagine you are a financial researcher, think about the prompts that you use in AI today, and we can actually pass that on top of data. And we can change the personas across topics, which was previously called explorers, like in Looker. Anything you want to add here, Chris?
Yeah, I think the other key thing that you get from the Omni AI is that it's tightly integrated with the rest of a BI tool, right? So you can actually just see in the UI what filters are being applied, how the query is being generated, and then you can go, if you see that you want to apply another filter, sure, you could ask the AI to do it. You could also go sort of riff on it yourself, right? So you kind of have the flexibility of being in a fully chat mode if you want to, and then you can kind of go, if you're a data person, and go into sort of more of a data exploratory mode as well.
Yeah, and also you guys have in beta the chat on the dashboards, which maybe I'm not supposed to talk about.
No, please.
But that's also really cool because we're able to enable it, and literally my executive team can go in and ask, we have an e-staff metrics dashboard, and they can ask questions, and it'll come back and play trends and allow them to ask questions on top of the data. And that's exciting because it's you're not just talking to a chat AI agent. It's like you're talking to chat AI on top of your dashboard itself, which is so cool. And then I think most importantly, when you think about what you have in your control as a data person, really you need levers. You can't just say, hey, I uploaded a description, I gave it AI context, good luck, people. Hope you get the right answer. And one thing I'm appreciative is Omni gives us this type of visibility where they actually tell us what questions people are asking. This actually gives us more insights and analysis into what are people using AI for, what is the AI doing well, and what isn't it doing well, and what levers can we do? Is it something wrong with our descriptions? Is it something wrong with AI context? Are people constantly getting the same question wrong and we should train it to answer that question correctly? What are people giving good feedback or bad feedback? An interesting trend we picked up is we are a SaaS company, so we measure annual recurring revenue, so ARR. We have about 80 different types of ARR. It's absurd. I don't blame the AI, because people on the team can't even figure out what ARR column to use when. And so we've actually already identified that that's an opportunity of improvement for us to make on top of the data itself. It's great, though, because we actually can take action, and the AI isn't just a black box where we have no idea what people are asking, or we have no idea if we've given them the right answer, if we've answered them correctly. We can actually do something more with it today, which is leaps ahead of what we had before. And then as we kind of think of the future, and actually I should mention something. As we think about the future, and we just rolled out Omni about 2 months ago, we just deprecated Looker, we're actually thinking about changing our success metric. One of our biggest success metrics was always how many people are in our BI tool, how many people are exploring and building in the BI tool themselves. Now we're changing it to how many people are using AI, and how often is the AI right, and how often is it wrong. And that's what we have in control. And as a data team, those are the things that we can manage to make this scale for the rest of the company and as the company gets bigger. And as we look to the future, right, Omni just released an MCP server, and we're looking forward to seeing how can we leverage the MCP server to operationalize people in the workflows that they have today. So people live in the BI tool. We love the BI tool. How can we now get the data where they need to be and where they live to make them wildly successful? Anything you want to add about MCP?
I think it's just a representation that AI has a lot of different interfaces, and I'm sure over the next 6 months there'll be twice as many, and the goal is just to kind of be in all of those, right? Because we I think in this state we don't really know what the final where the AI chat is going to live. It's going to live everywhere. It's most likely.
I have 60 seconds, and so I'm going to share with you quickly some key takeaways to our auto documentation initiative. Auto documentation, I say it's really easy, and I didn't build it myself. My amazing, incredible data engineering team built it, but they built it in 3 weeks. So I feel like it was not easy. It was an MVP. And I think what's really, really great is first of all, Omni made it super easy, syncing with dbt, incredibly helpful, made our lives so easy, because now it not only helps us in our BI tool, right, but we have that forever in dbt as well. The second is prompt engineering became key. We actually have 4 prompts we use. It's on this slide here. We use a prompt to extract columns. Then we use a prompt to generate descriptions for that column. Then we use a prompt to generate a description for the model. And then we use a prompt to generate a description for the entire schema. And it actually provides a great opportunity because we just have 4 generic prompts that run. But if you think about your data, you have go-to-market data, you have people analytics data, you have engineering and product data. You can actually make prompts that are a little bit more specific. You can make prompts that are specific to your business and therefore make the auto documentation more robust. We haven't gone down that. Like I said, this is an MVP, but we've identified that as an opportunity for us to do in the future. I will say, I'm going to call it out. How many of you guys use select star in any of your DBT models? Barely anybody. I see you, Rachel, over there. Barely anybody, which is great, because that's not us. Like, we have select star everywhere. I know it's a terrible practice. It's with CTEs, though. I could explain it, but it's a bad habit. Something we found that was not great for building lineage is it's hard to build lineage when you have select stars everywhere. And so that made a very interesting engineering problem, recursive engineering. It was fun. The second is if you have columns you create, like think about like A plus B is now a column Z, and you refer to column Z somewhere else. How do you actually teach and extract the data and form lineage when you've created and defined a column earlier on in a SQL statement or in a sub-CTE? Interesting problems, things to look forward to addressing when you go home and build this yourself. There's a few other things. You're welcome to read them. I'm also happy to take questions afterwards. Thank you so much for your time.